From the window on the second floor of a White House nestled in a lush suburban neighborhood just outside the bustling city of Chicago, the silhouette of a woman glowed in the evening sunlight. Sarah Johnson, 38 years old. The tiny life dozing in her arms was Emily, just 1 month old. As Sarah gazed at the sleeping face of her baby, she reflected on the journey that had brought her to this moment. 10 years ago, Sarah was enrolled in the MBA program at the University of Chicago. With a promising future ahead, she was respected by her classmates. It was during a group project that she was paired with Michael Brown. At first, Sarah was puzzled by Michael's laid-back personality. However, she gradually found herself drawn to his flexible thinking and decision-making skills. After graduation, they went their separate ways, but fate intervened, and they reunited 5 years later at the same IT company. On the day Sarah joined as the HR manager, she was greeted by Michael, who had become the head of the development department. "Hey, Sarah. Long time no see. Remember me?" Sarah felt her heart flutter at Michael's carefree smile. "Of course. Thanks to your ideas, that project won first prize." To avoid rumors of office romance, they dated discreetly. 2 years later, Michael proposed to Sarah in the company's garden. As she accepted the ring, Sarah was overwhelmed with joy. The wedding took place at a luxurious hotel overlooking Lake Michigan. Michael's mother, Martha, greeted her son's bride with a warm smile throughout the ceremony. "Sarah, I'm so happy to welcome you to our family." Sarah felt a sense of security in Martha's gentle voice. Martha was 65 years old. After losing her husband, she continued to teach at a local elementary school. Her calm demeanor and intelligent conversation captured Sarah's heart. They chose a new home about a 15-minute drive from Martha's house. Peaceful days followed, with the three of them visiting the local farmers market on weekends or enjoying gardening at Martha's house. In their second year of marriage, Sarah became pregnant. Martha was overjoyed and helped with the preparations for the baby's arrival. She offered detailed advice on choosing a crib and toys, and even taught Sarah how to make traditional quilts. "This child will be my grandchild. I'll love them with all my heart." Sarah was deeply grateful for Martha's words. On the day Emily was born, seeing Martha embrace Michael with joy in the hospital waiting room, Sarah felt truly blessed to be part of this happy family. During Sarah's postpartum recovery, Martha visited almost daily to help with housework and take care of Emily. Her kindness and dedication made Sarah feel closer to her than to her own mother. "Martha, thank you so much. It's such a comfort to have you here." "It's nothing, Sarah. We're family." Sarah's eyes welled up with happy tears at Martha's warm words. At that moment, she believed this happiness would last forever. When Emily was about 3 months old, subtle changes began to appear in their peaceful days. The first change was Emily's night crying. The baby, who had been relatively quiet until then, suddenly began to cry violently in the middle of the night. Sarah and Michael took turns comforting the baby, but the sleepless nights continued. "Michael, do you think we're doing something wrong?" When Sarah asked with an exhausted expression, Michael, with dark circles under his eyes, replied, "No, this seems to be normal. I read that baby crying peaks between 3 and 6 months." However, even understanding this intellectually didn't make it easier when they were woken up by crying every night. Their fatigue accumulated. Amidst this, Martha began visiting more frequently, not just on weekends but on weekdays too. "Oh my, is Emily fussing again?" Martha would pick up her grandchild and start soothing her skillfully. Sarah felt immense gratitude for her help. But Martha's behavior also began to change subtly. One day, when Sarah returned from work, she found Martha standing blankly in the kitchen. "Martha, what's wrong?" "Oh, Sarah. I'm sorry. I was going to prepare dinner, but I forgot the recipe." Sarah brushed it off, saying, "Don't worry, let's cook together." However, after that, Martha occasionally forgot small things or repeated the same questions. Meanwhile, a large project had started at Michael's company, and he gradually began coming home later. "Sarah, I'm sorry, but I'll have to work this weekend too." Sarah felt irritated but had to show understanding to Michael's apologetic voice. "I understand. But please try to check on Emily sometimes." "Of course, I will." However, Michael's "of course" often didn't materialize in reality. By the time he came home, Emily was usually already asleep. At Sarah's workplace, balancing childcare and work became increasingly difficult. As the head of the HR department, her workload kept increasing. "Mrs. Johnson, can you handle all the recruitment interviews next week?" Sarah answered her boss with a smile, hiding her fatigue. "Yes, I can manage. Leave it to me." But inwardly, her anxiety was growing. Pumping milk between interviews, calling the daycare, and sleepless nights. She couldn't see an end to this lifestyle. One day, when Sarah returned from work, she found Martha trying to soothe a crying Emily in the living room. But something seemed off. "Sure. What a noisy child. I'll tell your mother." Martha's tone sounded colder than usual. Sarah couldn't believe her ears. "Martha, did something happen?" Noticing Sarah's voice, Martha suddenly changed her expression. "Oh, Sarah. Welcome home. Emily was just a bit fussy." Sarah felt uneasy but convinced herself it was due to fatigue. However, from that day on, Martha's behavior became increasingly strange. Sometimes she would gently soothe her grandchild, and other times she would suddenly become irritable. She would start cooking and forget what she was making halfway through. She began calling Sarah by the wrong name more often. Sarah felt perplexed by these changes. However, in the midst of her busy days juggling work and childcare, she didn't have the luxury to fully grasp the seriousness of the situation. And soon, an event that would greatly change the family's fate was about to occur. On a rainy Friday night, Sarah returned home exhausted after working overtime. As she opened the front door, an unusual silence enveloped the house. "I'm home," Sarah's voice echoed through the empty hallway. There was no response. As she headed to the living room, she found Martha sitting there, holding Emily. Michael was nowhere to be seen. "Martha, how's Emily?" She finally fell asleep. Such a demanding child. Martha's voice lacked its usual warmth. Sarah felt uneasy but tried to take Emily from her. However, she noticed something was off about Emily's condition. "Emily, what's wrong?" The baby's eyes weren't focusing. Her breathing was shallow. "Martha, did something happen to Emily?" "Nothing happened. She just wouldn't stop crying, so I rocked her a bit more firmly." Sarah felt a chill run down her spine at Martha's words. "Firmly? What do you mean?" "She was being noisy, so I just shook her a little. That's how we did it in my day." Gripped by fear, Sarah immediately picked up Emily. The baby's body felt softer than usual. "We need to call an ambulance." As Sarah reached for the phone, Martha grabbed her arm. "What are you doing? Don't be so dramatic. Babies are tough. Let go. Emily's in danger." Sarah shook off Martha's hand and desperately called for an ambulance. Just as the sound of sirens became audible, Michael returned home. "What's going on?" Michael stood dumbfounded at the chaotic scene. The journey to the hospital in the ambulance was a blur for Sarah. Holding Emily's tiny hand, all she could do was pray. In the emergency room, doctors bustled about. "We suspect shaken baby syndrome. We'll perform a CT scan." Sarah nearly collapsed at the doctor's words. In the waiting room, Michael confronted Sarah. "What exactly happened? Did Mom really do something?" Martha said. She shook Emily hard. "That's ridiculous. Mom would never do such a thing." Michael's anger was directed at Sarah. "You've been putting too much pressure on Mom with your work." "Me? You're the one who's never home." The couple's argument was interrupted by the arrival of the doctor. "Are you the family? I have something to discuss with you." In the consultation room, the doctor began explaining calmly. "The CT results show no major damage, fortunately. However, there are symptoms of mild concussion. This is clearly due to external force." Sarah and Michael held their breath. "Did anyone shake Emily forcefully?" After a moment of silence, Michael spoke. "My mother." At that moment, Sarah saw her husband's expression change. The anger and denial suddenly turned into understanding and fear. "Why didn't we notice?" Michael's voice trembled. "Martha's behavior has been strange lately. But none of us realized the real cause." Sarah's voice was heavy with regret. The doctor looked at them both and continued quietly. "You mentioned your mother-in-law's behavior has been odd. If you don't mind, could we have her examined as well?" Sarah and Michael looked at each other. The same fear and hope were reflected in their eyes. "All right. I'll bring my mother in." Michael's voice was filled with determination. That night, in a hospital room, the truth that would change the family's fate was about to be revealed. By Emily's bedside, Sarah held her daughter's small hand, contemplating their future. A heavy atmosphere hung in the hospital corridor. Sarah and Michael waited with bated breath in front of the examination room. The time until Martha's test results came out felt like an eternity. Finally, the doctor emerged from the room. They braced themselves at his expression. "Mr. and Mrs. Johnson, Mrs. Brown's test results are in." The doctor's voice was quiet yet weighty. "Martha has early-stage Alzheimer's disease." Sarah and Michael gasped at those words. "Alzheimer's." Michael's voice trembled. The doctor continued, "It's in the early stages, but the symptoms have already progressed significantly. We're seeing memory impairment, decreased judgment, and difficulty controlling emotions." Sarah had a flashback of Martha's recent behavior. Her forgetfulness, sudden outbursts of anger, and her treatment of Emily. Everything connected. Why didn't we notice? Tears welled up in Sarah's eyes. Michael held his head in his hands. "I was so focused on work. I didn't pay attention to Mom's condition." The doctor consoled them. Early symptoms of Alzheimer's are often mistaken for stress or simple forgetfulness. "You shouldn't blame yourselves." At those words, some of the tension left their shoulders. However, new anxieties quickly surfaced. "What should we do now?" Sarah asked nervously. "First, appropriate treatment and care are necessary. Medication can slow the progression of symptoms. Creating a safe environment is also crucial." Michael looked up. "Should we put Mom in a facility?" Sarah felt conflicted at those words. Her love for Martha and Emily's safety. Two emotions clashed. "That's something you should discuss thoroughly as a family. However, the current situation is dangerous for both your mother and your granddaughter." The doctor's words weighed heavily on their hearts. After leaving the consultation room, they headed to Emily's hospital room. Looking at their sleeping daughter, Sarah made a decision. "Michael, I think we need to talk again." Michael nodded silently. The next day, Sarah and Michael faced each other at home. Martha was temporarily under observation at the hospital. "Michael, I can't do this anymore." Sarah's voice trembled, but it was full of determination. "What are you saying?" "This is when we should be united as a family. But continuing to live together like this is dangerous. When I think about Emily." Michael fell silent. "Let's get a divorce." Sarah's words froze the air in the room. "Sarah, calm down. It's a difficult time, but we can get through this together." But Sarah's resolve was firm. "Michael, you need to take care of your mother. But I have a responsibility to protect Emily." After a long silence, Michael slowly nodded. "I understand. I can see where you're coming from." That day, they quietly began preparations for separation. Amidst a mix of sadness, regret, and new determination, Sarah was about to take a step towards a new life for herself and Emily. A small apartment in the Chicago suburbs. The morning sun streaming through the window brightly illuminated the simple room. Sarah woke up to the sound of the alarm clock. Next to her, 2-year-old Emily was still in dreamland. 1 year after the divorce. Sarah and Emily's new life wasn't easy, but they were moving forward step by step together. "Emily, it's time to wake up," Sarah gently roused her daughter. While preparing breakfast in the small kitchen, Sarah checked today's schedule. In the morning, drop Emily off at daycare, then work. And in the afternoon. "Mama, good morning," Emily approached with a sleepy voice. "Good morning, young lady. Today we're going to visit Grandma Martha." Emily's face lit up. "Yay! I wonder if Grandma is doing well." Martha's condition had stabilized thanks to proper treatment and care. While the progression of Alzheimer's couldn't be completely halted, she was able to spend her days peacefully. Sarah regularly visited Martha and brought Emily to see her. Although hesitant at first, she decided to maintain family ties on the doctor's recommendation. In the afternoon, Sarah and Emily visited the care facility. "Sarah, Emily. You came." A smile spread across Martha's face. "Grandma." Emily ran up to her. Sarah watched over Martha and Emily's interaction. The fear from before had faded, and now a peaceful time flowed. "Sarah, I'm so sorry." Tears welled up in Martha's eyes. "Martha, you don't need to apologize anymore. What's important is from now on." Sarah gently held Martha's hand. On the way home, Sarah's phone rang. It was Michael. "Sarah, about the NPO, I'd like to help out." After the divorce, Sarah had the idea to establish an NPO to support parents struggling with child rearing. She wanted to use her own experiences to help people facing similar difficulties. "Thank you, Michael. I'd be glad to have your help." Their relationship was also gradually being repaired over time. That night, after putting Emily to bed, Sarah sat at her small desk. She spread out the NPO's project plan and began preparing for tomorrow's meeting. "I'm sure we can make a difference for someone." Believing this, Sarah diligently typed away at her keyboard. Outside the window, the full moon shone quietly. Sarah and Emily, who had overcome hardships and started a new life. And the family bonds that were slowly healing. Sarah took a deep breath. Tomorrow, another new challenge awaits. But for now, she wanted to cherish this peaceful night. Peeking at Emily's sleeping face, Sarah smiled softly. "Good night, my treasure." Then she returned to her work. To greet a new morning, and to help more people. In a park in the Chicago suburbs. Under fully blooming cherry trees, a lively picnic was taking place. "Emily, eat slowly," Sarah's gentle voice rang out. "Okay," 7-year-old Emily responded with a smile. Next to her sat Martha in a wheelchair. She watched over her granddaughter with a peaceful expression. Although her Alzheimer's had progressed, she was cherishing her time with family. "Mom, here's some tea," Michael offered Martha a cup. 5 years had passed, old wounds had healed, and new bonds had sprouted. The NPO Ray of Hope that Sarah had established had become a support for parents struggling with child rearing. Michael also helped by utilizing his IT skills to build an online consultation system. The two had built a new relationship of trust through their work. "Sarah, "How's the preparation for the next lecture going?" Michael asked. "It's going well. Thanks to your ideas, we'll be able to reach even more people." Even after their divorce, they continued to work together on child rearing and social contribution. While each had found new partners, they treasured the family structure centered around Emily. "Hey everyone, gather round. Let's take a picture," Sarah's voice called out, and the family huddled together. Through the lens appeared not just blood relations, but a large family bound by ties. Sarah's new partner John, Michael's fiancée Lisa, and even families who had received support from the NPO joined in, expanding the circle of smiles. As the camera's shutter clicked, Sarah was enveloped in a deep sense of gratitude. A family that had overcome difficulties, forgiven each other, and found new happiness. And the joy of being able to contribute to society by leveraging those experiences. "Okay, say cheese." Amidst the fluttering cherry blossoms in full bloom, a photograph filled with smiles and hope was taken. It was a record of a precious moment gained after overcoming trials. That night, Sarah wrote in her diary, "When I think of the difficult days we've been through, our current happiness feels like a miracle. But this isn't a miracle. It's a reality created by each of our efforts and our hearts caring for one another. I want to continue delivering this light to many more people." Outside the window, the chirping of birds announcing a new dawn began to be heard. It was the beginning of a